Hey everybody, Dutchsinse here. 9:32 p.m. Central Time on Saturday, February 8th, 2014. And we're looking at Earthquake 3D, which is a USGS feed of the most recent earthquakes plotted on a globe. You can see a 4.4 magnitude earthquake struck in central Oklahoma. And for those of you who've been following my videos for the last 3 years, you know I've been covering the earthquake activity in Arkansas, Oklahoma, southern Colorado, North Texas. This region here has been experiencing a large amount of movement over the last several years, and that's due to man-made pumping operations, frac wells, injection wells. Now to prove that, let's just go ahead and get the coordinates on this from the USGS. And this is a very simple process to do. If you guys are curious about what resides at the earthquake epicenters, all you do, pull the coordinates, go to Google Earth, and put them in. Now I just did this just to verify what was already there. I'm already confident to report to you that this is definitely some kind of man-made earthquake. So here we go. Here is the 4.4 that occurred today, and we're just going to back this out ever so slightly. And you will see just to the west, I've marked the nearest frac well. Here we go. Okay, and here's our tanks. It looks like they even have some piping laid out, maybe to do another frac operation. The imagery on here is October 5th of 2013, so it's relatively new. Now let me back this out and just show you guys other examples. All right, so here's a great example. All right, we have a 2.7 magnitude earthquake that happened on April 23rd, 2013, and you can just zoom in on any one of these. I mean, we've marked so many, but you can see the storage tanks, the pump that's doing the injection, and most likely what they're doing is injecting water down into the ground, wastewater, or water filled with chemicals, to extract the natural gas from the shale. And to explain this to you, let me just go ahead and show you Earthquake 3D. If you followed my videos for the last several years, or if you're a new viewer, you may know that the craton, the plate of North America, extends from up here in the Pacific Northwest, the edge of the plate in Idaho, all the way down through Texas, across Colorado, through Texas, and then back up to the northeast coast, up here to the split in Canada. Now let me show you the earthquakes over the last 7 days in the United States. Okay, you can trace a line across most of these earthquakes right down the edge of the craton from Yellowstone, where the 2.7 here this past week, down to Texas, 2.6, and then the swarm of earthquakes occurring in Oklahoma. Okay, you can see all these. We have one earthquake out here in the middle of the craton in South Dakota. Again, these are pumping operations. There's a huge oil and natural gas operation happening in North Dakota and South Dakota. Billions of cubic feet of natural gas being pumped out. And here at the center, of course, is an area we need to watch, because if the area is being displaced, we're going to see further movement earthquake-wise. Now to explain that, we have to back this out just a little bit. And then we'll get into these other earthquakes here to the east. But to explain the excessive activity along the edge of the craton, I have to show you the activity to the west. Now, most geologists, seismologists, would say that the earthquake activity normally in the United States would be coming from the spread of the mid-Atlantic rise, pushing to the west. Normally, we're taught subduction process takes care of the Pacific plate, and that there is no spillover, quote unquote, that occurs from the west. But let me just take these down over the last several days. Watch the progression. You see where the pressure is occurring from. It's occurring from the west, spilling across to the east. And that leads us to the east. On the eastern edge of the North American craton, after we see activity at Yellowstone, after we see activity in the Midwest, we see follow-up activity to the east, to the northeast, the spillover that's occurring, the pressure that's building, that's transferring along the edge, the rigid edge of the North American plate, just so happens to be the same edge that they are fracking, literally injecting water deep down into the ground to extract natural gas from the shale deposits that are on the edge of the craton. This 2.6 here in Missouri, just south of where I live here in St. Louis, this was in Potosi. Many reports of this being a possible frost quake. Now, you may not know what a frost quake is. This summed up, a frost quake is an earthquake that occurs after a dramatic cooling that happens in the upper layers of the Earth's crust going up to the surface. Usually happens after long periods of cold. Usually has something to do with the groundwater and the freezing of the water table. And I urge you guys to look into frostquakes. That is something that is being reported for this 2.6 here. But the 2.8 up here to the northeast, just across the border in Canada. Go look it up. There's nothing there. There's no frac well. There's nothing. This is the edge of the North American craton being displaced. Now, also, ironically, in Maryland, in the northeast, over the last several days, several strange booms have been reported, rumbles. And we've seen that over and over again over the last couple of years happen in the Northeast after we see the large-scale movement in the Midwest. You'll remember 2011 and 2012, multiple 5.0 earthquakes happening in Arkansas, Oklahoma, and Colorado. Borderline 5, a couple of them 4.9. Anyways, causing damage to the people's houses. And that was then followed by earthquake movement to the east. After the multiple 5.0s here, we saw 5.9 strike in Virginia, right in here, and it caused damage in the capital. And of course, everybody remembers that from last year, the East Coast shaking. Why is it all occurring? Excessive movement in the Pacific to the west. Let me go ahead and show you the 5.0 earthquakes in greater right now. And this should really show you the cluster points. Okay, you can see from Japan going south through Sumatra, we have multiple 5.0 and 6.0 earthquakes occurring in Indonesia here. And the depth, now you can see how high these are off the planet. The higher they are, the deeper they are. So you can see there's been a couple deeper earthquakes and several shallow, larger earthquakes. Multiple 6.0 earthquakes over the last week. You can see. And you can see which way they stretch. They are stretching around the Pacific plate and having a spillover effect across the west as well. It's not just happening in the United States. You can connect the dots. You really can. And this takes you through areas where we've had previous 7.0 and 8.0 earthquake activity over the last several years. Remember Turkey? Just last year. Huge, right? That's a cluster point that's going again. And we're looking across the entire Mideast. A pretty large-scale movement, if you ask me, over the last 7 days. And then, of course, the 6.2 that hit here in Greece, which kind of caught Europe off guard since they haven't seen any large-scale movement in almost a year. Now, down here to the south, the lone 6.0 along the Mid-Atlantic Ridge, the South Mid-Atlantic, at the Scotia Sea in the South Sandwich Islands off the east coast of South America. I would say we need to watch the Mid-Atlantic Ridge again for that movement to follow up. Now, I haven't even touched on the 4.0s that happened here to the south in Cuba, just south of Key West, Florida. 4.3 magnitude earthquake shook the entire region, and shake reports were felt in southern Florida. That is a sign, again, that the whole area is being displaced from the west. Let's just take this down one more notch, and you can see it's spilling over from the west, and it's also spilling down to the south. And most geologists and seismologists, again, say the spillover does not occur. They say that earthquakes that happen are not related. And I challenged that last year when we saw the 7.0s strike here at Vanuatu, and at the same time we saw 7.0 strike directly across over here in South America and Colombia on the same day, that those two are related, and that they need to readjust their thinking about what it takes for an earthquake to be developed off another earthquake. And you can see the depth again on these. The further east you go, this here is a volcano, a series of volcanoes, and we saw multiple 7 and 8.0 earthquakes at a deep level. So, you'd say somewhere in the 100-mile range, let's say, depth, and that was associated with the volcanism over the last several years at that volcano at Vanuatu. I can never pronounce it right. And as you go west, you can see the 6.0s that have occurred and the subsequent 5s and 4s that signify areas to watch. So overall, what do you watch? You watch the areas that are cluster points, areas where it looks like it's already getting out of hand. And that's the area to watch for further movement in the near term. So we're talking 2 weeks. Let's say 2 weeks we need to watch for the West Pacific to show a possible large-scale earthquake anywhere from Japan, south through Sumatra, east through Vanuatu. And going west, we have cluster spots. So we don't have to watch the entire region, but we need to watch the areas that are already swarming. In the United States, it's a slightly different story. We need to watch for further 4 and 5.0 earthquake activity in the fracking operations, so that would be southern Colorado, Arkansas, and possibly even reaching up here to the northwest towards Yellowstone at a more natural earthquake at Yellowstone supervolcano. It's a real mouthful, guys. If you got an earthquake plan ready, be prepared just in case. If you don't have an earthquake plan and you say, I don't live in a seismically prone area, we might have one every now and then, but it's not a big deal, you may want to consider developing a plan that overlaps. So maybe have your severe weather plan, if you have one, overlap with your earthquake plan. Have the same kind of supplies ready to go. Have an extra set of keys ready to go in a bug-out bag by the door, in case you need to grab it on the way out. You never know. Try fumbling for your keys while things are falling around you. And if you've never seen an earthquake, you need to go watch the earthquake footage, which I'll link down below. I'll put a link down below for this. You can go watch what happens in an earthquake, how quick it happens, how your refrigerator is knocked across the room in a matter of a few seconds, how your cabinets are all open and the glasses are all over the floor. How are you going to get to your keys if you're barefoot in the middle of the night and you need to get out of your house instantly while your house is shaking and there's broken glass all over the floor? Think about it. Die Hard, the movie. You don't want to be Bruce Willis walking across a floor full of glass. These are things you need to take into consideration now. It's too late once it hits. Ask anybody who lives on the West Coast. Ask anybody who lives in Japan. They wish they had that plan beforehand if they didn't have one. And it doesn't take you any time to do that plan. Maybe a few minutes, maybe a few hours. You can use supplies you already have around your house even. Okay? Much love. I'll put links down below for earthquake monitoring. If you guys are curious, I put together all types of links from around the world for monitoring earthquakes. And you can look across the U.S. at all the different EDUs and .coms. And then we have various international agencies that are covering this as well. To get the full scoop from the USGS is to imagine that the United States gives you all the information internationally. And it's just not how it goes, guys. Europe, for instance. Let me just go ahead and show you. We have to go check the European agency on here, the EMSC. And it's going to give us a whole load of smaller earthquakes in Europe. Because the USGS is only keeping track of 4.0 and greater internationally, we're not seeing the full picture of what's happening here in Europe. When you look in Europe, you can see Poland going south, but specifically in Poland, these are areas where they're also doing natural gas extraction. Not all of them, but several of them. We could take the time to go look these up, guys, but we don't have time in this video. I'm already 12 minutes in on a 15-minute video. So much love. Be safe, have a plan, be prepared just in case. Cheers.